Good evening, guys. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming. The format of this talk is just going to be quite informal. I think the best thing to do would just give you a little bit of of sort of an intro into effectively my life, how I got into setting up Wahaca, and sort of where it came from and how, because I'm assuming most of you sort of associated with London Business School or going on to do other things in that entrepreneurial space, just want to know a little bit about kind of how to get into it and how to hopefully think in a slightly entrepreneurial way. So to start with, just sorry, flip that back. Wahaca started in 2007. Does anyone not know Wahaca? Anyone? No, great. We basically, Tommy and I got together, and I'll talk a little bit about our backgrounds in a second. And in 2007, November, we opened in Covent Garden in a basement, and subsequently have grown the business to be 22 Wahaca restaurants now. And we've also got another brand called DF Mexico, which we're developing, and a small burrito concept called Burrito Mama. So just a little bit of an overview about myself and Tommy and how we came together. So my background, as we just mentioned, I started life, left university, and really wanted to get into a position where I could set up my own business. I basically had two ambitions. One was either to own and sort of run a theatre, or to go into the restaurant space. That was always my ambition, but I didn't really know how I was going to get there. And I, coming out of university, got a job with Merrill Lynch doing corporate finance and M&A. Wasn't particularly good at it, didn't enjoy it that much, but for me, what it taught me was everything about running a business from the finance side. So, you know, cash flows, balance sheets, P&Ls, all those things which most of you will be very familiar with. But at the age of kind of 22, didn't know anything about it, but also realized that this was really, really important to understand if you wanted to go into business, or at least it would help a hell of a lot knowing that. So after about 2 years at corporate finance at Merrill's, kind of decided that I wanted to get out of the finance world, and much to the kind of disappointment of my parents, who kind of had me sort of badged as an M&A banker, decided to write to a whole lot of entrepreneurs. So I wrote to, I think, about 20 or 30 entrepreneurs, basically saying, look, really like to come and work for you. And I think most of them ignored me. And quite a few who I meet now who always kind of say, oh yeah, I wrote to you and you never got back to me. But I wrote to Stelios, who actually came here. Stelios Haji-Ioannou set up easyJet. And I was like, right, how do I capture his imagination? So I wrote an email saying, easy to delete, but why always take the easy option? And sort of wrote this whole thing about why I was great. He was just setting up Easy Cinema, actually. So I kind of wrote this whole thing about wanting to get involved. And literally about 2 minutes later, got an email directly back from Stelios saying, great, Mark, thanks, come in and meet me. And I sort of sat at my computer slightly sort of frozen and quite ecstatic. So I went in to see him, and he very kindly offered me a job to go and work sort of alongside him in his new projects group, I did that for a year and a half, 2 years. And for me, it was a really, really interesting experience, because Stelios obviously had a whole lot of money. He wanted to invest, he wanted to be entrepreneurial. So for us, it was like a little treasure trove of just having fun. He'd just go, right, let's think about Easy Gym, go away for 2 months and just come up with a business plan for how Easy Gym's going to work, how's Easy Cruise going to work, Easy Car, we've got this problem, how are we going to deal with it? And it was just really fun. You could effectively kind of spend a bit of money, you got intros to loads of people, and just develop business ideas. Most of which have gone on not to succeed, but that's another point. It was for me really, really entertaining. So I then started having an idea about setting up a restaurant and combining restaurant and theatre, and sort of had this crazy idea, which in my head was called Impromptu, and it was going to be taking lots of amazing artists and artists and actors and bringing them into a sort of a warehouse type stage where they were going to sort of effectively cook and wait, but be able to do impromptu kind of things whilst the diners were there. It's a really stupid idea, but it was in my head it was very, very exciting, bringing theatre and restaurants together. And a friend of mine kind of very kindly said, listen, okay idea, but if you want to learn about restaurants, you've got to go and meet these guys, and introduced me to the two founders of Nando's, who at the time were about 60 restaurants, I think, two South African guys, and most of you probably know Nando's big peri-peri chicken concept. They've currently got about 300 or 400, I think 350 in the UK. Anyway, met those guys, and they were just sort of going through a process of buying, sort of as a private venture, buying Pizza Express with a private equity group. And I kind of joined them and got involved with sort of buying Pizza Express, Ask and Easy, creating a thing called Gondola Holdings, and was there for about another 2.5 years until we floated that. And at that time I said to them, right, I wanted to do restaurants. I've kind of realized that restaurant idea I had before was not a great one, but I think this is my time. I'm going to go off and do it. And they very kindly, they'd kind of seen my work ethos, they knew what I was like, and they said, look, conceptually we'll back you. Go away and find an idea and come back and see me. So kind of very excitedly went round, kind of traveled the world a bit, went to everywhere, sort of Egypt, went to America, Mexico, Argentina, just trying to see what in the restaurant space were we missing in the UK, and quickly realised that that Mexican food. I'd actually travelled to Mexico when I was 18. I got my A-level results in the main Zocalo, the main square in Oaxaca, in the Oaxaca city, and I knew there was this amazing food, but I hadn't quite sort of registered the difference between the UK and the Mexican food till I went back, and got really excited that there was this great opportunity. I was sitting next to a friend at a dinner party, kind of talking to her about this, and she said, "Oh, well, you've got to meet my friend Tommy." And Tommy had just won, or Thomasina had just won MasterChef, which I think is the world's biggest TV cooking franchise. And she kind of got into the final actually cooking a Mexican mole sauce, which 9 years ago no one had really ever kind of seen. It was sort of a venison mole dish, which kind of wowed the judges, and she then went on to win it. And Tommy, prior to that, had actually lived out in Mexico City, and had worked in setting up some cocktail bars, some restaurants, and most importantly, had actually travelled throughout the whole of Mexico. And Mexico is a bit like Italy; it's very, very regional, and people are fiercely protective of their ingredients in their local area and all of their recipes, and it's a real grandmother to mother to daughter kind of environment. And Tommy managed to kind of charm her way into many kind of grandmothers' kitchens and get familiar with the food and all the different varieties of Mexican cooking. So she had this idea in her head that she wanted to bring a Mexican-style restaurant to the UK. So we literally met in a pub in February 2006 in White City, and an hour later shook hands, and 3 weeks later, were on a plane together over to Mexico. And that's kind of where the story began of Oaxaca. So we went out there, and we didn't really know what the restaurant was going to be like. We didn't have a name for it, and we didn't know, are we going to go for a high-end restaurant? Are we going to go for a kind of a burrito bar? There were no burrito kind of businesses open in London at the time, but was kind of aware of the likes of Chipotle and other Mexican businesses like Baja Fresh. Or were we going to do something in the middle? And we went to all the high-end restaurants. We went to, tablecloth, sort of waiters with black ties, and then also went to all the markets, the streets, the stalls, chatted to all these guys, and effectively realized, well, Tommy knew this already, but Mexican food is all about the street food. Even in the high-end restaurants, those of you who've been to Mexico City, it's all styled around tortillas, tacos, what you can do with those tortillas. And it didn't really make a difference where it came from. And by visiting some of the Mexican markets out there, which is these vast kind of almost sort of villages taken over at the weekends by just so many stalls, and all these stalls kind of working together. It was a sort of an intriguing experience where you kind of walk in, and there's a sort of a meat supplier on one side, and you just go and sort of pick a cut of beef, and then next door there's someone selling spring onions, and then someone selling tortillas over there, and you pick up all this stuff, and then you hand it to someone who then goes off and cooks it and puts you on a table over there, and someone else will come and sell you some drink, and it's this whole market kind of working together, but all independent kind of stalls. And we got really excited about that, and just thought actually the Mexican market seems to be and that street food concept seems to be something really, really exciting and totally different, and it allowed us to be much more creative than just being a burrito bar. So we kind of set ourselves thinking, right, why can't we have this amazing food at home? And we did a bit of research. We came back to people and said, right, what does the UK market back in 2006 think about Mexican food? And it became clear very, very quickly that people didn't give it any respect at all. No one really knew Mexican food. And when you asked people, it was kind of refried beans with everything, stuff wrapped with other stuff, tortillas, refried beans. What are they? Still don't really understand them. And when it comes to imagery, these were the images of Mexican food 7-8 years ago. It was all about your kind of fiery chilies. It was all about your Aztec gods, your Speedy Gonzales, your sombreros, your ponchos. That was kind of it. And not only that was the restaurant, that was also the marketing scene. That's what the tourist board were putting out there in terms of this is why you want to go to Mexico, to kind of experience these things. And we don't diss Tex-Mex. Tex-Mex, and this is obviously the Tex-Mex market. Tex-Mex is really fun. You go there, have some tequilas, get a bit sort of smashed, and then you basically have some food. And the food is just kind of irrelevant. You have your kind of fajitas and lots of sizzling things, but you're not really leaving going, wow, that was really amazing food. And so for us, we had this really sort of exciting challenge. And at the time, we were quite inspired by Wagamama's, who had sort of, I think they got to about 20, 30 sites. And, they'd had this experience of taking a whole new type of cuisine that the UK didn't know, that kind of Pan-Asian cooking and sort of udon noodles and all that. And their challenge was to tell people what is that about. Our challenge was actually to persuade people that they think they know Mexican food, but actually this is what Mexican food is. It's something completely different. And the actual story of Mexican food was really, really interesting. And so for journalists, we really kind of targeted over the last kind of 5-6 years, educating people about the history of Mexican food. It is, I think, the 3rd or 4th most biodiverse country in the world. All of these products and many, many more: corn, chili, cocoa, therefore chocolate, tomatoes, beans, avocado, squash, vanilla, cinnamon. They're all indigenous to Mexico. So the Mexicans have been cooking these things before the Italians got hold of tomatoes, and it's in their culture, all these amazing ingredients. There's 30 different types of avocados, there's 400 different types of chilies, and people just didn't know this. So for us, it was a really exciting opportunity to be able to say to people, okay, you think you know Mexican food, well, we're going to show you what Mexican food's really about. And also when it came to the imagery, the kind of the design, for me, kind of going back to that kind of thing around the theatre, I've always loved restaurants. I've eaten out in restaurants sort of far too much, even as a sort of a student at university, spent all my money going to restaurants. And I love the food, but I also love the experience. And it was the experiences in restaurants that drove me back to particular restaurants. It was how you were treated. It was the look. It was the design. What did the menu look like? What was the crockery? How do people interact in that space? And to me, that was really important. And we wanted to create something that was different. So we wanted to tell a story about Mexico and not just deliver Mexican food. And all the different sort of images of Luis Barragan as a great architect, modern Mexico, the markets, the art. It's probably the most culturally rich sort of Central South American country there is, and politically really, really strong. And so we felt that none of the marketing messages that particularly the tourist board were putting out there were focusing on this. So we kind of almost took it on ourselves as a mission to say, okay, we're actually going to educate people about Mexican food and what it's about. So we started in July 2007 with this kind of mission of being inspired by the markets, the sights, the flavors and the energy, and wanting to emulate the character and flavors of the markets while sourcing produce as close to home as we can. And for us, it was that kind of sustainable angle as well. If you're in a market, you're going to be using local produce and knowing your suppliers and all those kind of elements, which again, we kind of set as a principle of the business very early on. So we opened our first restaurant in July 2007. And it was quite a shock, really. I remember the guys at Nando's kind of said to me, there's a big difference between sitting at a desk and understanding restaurants and operating restaurants. And I kind of rather naively said, yeah, whatever, we'll get it. And it was a massive shock. Neither Tommy or I had we certainly never run a restaurant before. We'd never We'd done a bit of waitering. Tommy had done a little bit of kind of stages in different kitchens, but we didn't really know what we were doing. We gathered around us a really sort of ambitious and young group of managers. The average age about 25 or something, and we just said, right, let's just give it a go. So we opened our doors. About half an hour later, we shut the doors because the whole kitchen had flooded, and the guys literally were standing in the kitchen with crap up to their knees, kind of like this, and I was just sort of going, oh my god, this is just couldn't go worse. And just all these different, we then 3 days later we managed to create a massive oil spill outside, and I spent 6 hours tidying up all this oil whilst neighbours were going nuts. And it was a sort of a real baptism of fire in terms of understanding the restaurant industry, and also in terms of recruitment. Everyone was like, oh, you'll be fine, you get loads of people, Gumtree is the one you want to go for. So we put a big ad out in Gumtree, and 4 people replied. And we were just sitting there going, oh my god, we're opening in 12 days and we can't get anyone. What are we going to do? Panic, panic, panic. Anyway, kept going, and we opened the doors, and we kind of came up with Wahaca as a name. Those of you that speak Spanish, there's no W in Spanish, so people kind of said, why would you do that? Why would you spell the name of a Mexican restaurant and you can't even spell it in that language? And for us, the main reason, we didn't want to be associated as a Mexican restaurant. Our big point was we're totally different Mexican. We didn't want to be Los this or Dos that or some Spanish name. We wanted to be something that's different, and people looked at Wahaca and they didn't go, oh, it's a Mexican restaurant, don't like Mexican food. It'd be, oh, Wahaca, that looks quite bright, colourful, I wonder what it is, have a quick look, cool design, it's a Mexican restaurant, oh, what's a taco, da da da. So that for us was a big inspiration. And we actually, with a little bit of fear, went to see the Mexican ambassador and kind of said, listen, because Wahaca comes, those of you who don't know, there's a state in Mexico which is spelled Oaxaca, which is pronounced Wahaca, and it's probably the second most important state in Mexico. And we kind of like the idea of taking this inspiration in the name. It's a lovely sounding name, but we didn't want to do just Oaxacan food, and we wanted to twist things up a little bit and make it sound a bit different. So we went to the ambassador kind of with slight trepidation going, we're slightly kind of sabotaging your second most important city, do you mind, kind of thing. And he had a big smile on his face, and I think there was about 6 people we presented to, and sort of one slightly older lady looked absolutely horrified, but everyone else seemed very, very happy with it. Yeah, we opened the doors, and it was a good start. It sort of, apart from those disasters, took about 3 weeks, and I was just outside. Hopefully some of you got those little chili seeds we've got, which I was just outside with these, and this was our big kind of marketing inspiration, where we thought, let's create something that looks like matches, and then when people open them up, they're actually chili seeds, and they'll kind of enforce the idea of sustainability, trying to get a conversation going, people cooking at home. And they've actually been a huge success. If you don't know what I'm talking about, these little things here, which are the Wahaca chili seeds, and they've been a bit of a marketing sensation for us. We've given away over 10 million of them since we opened. And if you go online and put in Wahaca chili seeds, there's loads and loads of sort of people creating their own little kind of greenhouse incubators at home and giving chili advice on how to grow your Wahaca chilies. And it was a really, really exciting kind of marketing tool. So I was out there on the streets every day handing out these chilies, trying to tell people about new types of Mexican food. And as I said, it was going right. The weekends were terrible. And one day, at the time, we actually paid a PR company not to get us PR, which everyone always finds quite weird. And the reason behind it was Tommy had won MasterChef. And we knew that a lot of journalists were kind of interested in what she was going to go on and do. And everyone kind of assumed she was going to set up this sort of high-end Mexican restaurant. And what we didn't want is loads of journalists come in expecting this high-end sort of proposition, and what they were going to get was street food, eating with your hands, very kind of casual food coming at different times. So we actually kind of said, look, we until we know what we're doing, how this whole thing's going to play out with customers, what they're going to like, what they're not, we just really don't want any journalists coming in. But it didn't work very well, because Daily Candy, which those of you who know Daily Candy, it was back then, this is sort of Facebooks have just sort of launched around the UK, wasn't nearly as big as it is now. Likewise, Twitter, people weren't using Twitter in the same way. So the way to really get your message out was through the old email system. And Daily Candy sent out an email, I think it was every Friday morning, to about 350,000 people in London. So one Friday, I think it was the third or fourth Friday, suddenly we looked out and we sort of expected a usual run of like 100 people or something coming in. And there was just a queue up the stairs, out the door, onto the streets. We had I think it was about a 3-hour queue. And albeit most of the time our produce was sustainable, I was just running every hour up to Tesco's, round our back door, grabbing anything I get my hands on, putting it in the oven. Yeah, it was absolute chaos. I mean, it was quite embarrassing, the kind of what we got up to, and also the customers were pretty much getting a sort of 50-50 experience. I mean, we had, people were waiting literally 2-3 hours for to come in, and then this fast kind of casual Mexican street food place was then taking about an hour and 20 minutes to get the food to the table, because we had 4 people in the kitchen now, and we had about 5 people on the floor. Now and we had a total staff then of about 25 people. In the same restaurant with the same number of tables and chairs, we now have about 85. So that was kind of how wrong we got it. And the rest of my time was just apologising to customers, going, "I'm so sorry, please come back," and just sort of fighting fires. And I remember sort of 6 weeks, and this queue just carried on. It was amazing. Every day we'd come in, and Tommy and I lost literally a stone in about three weeks, I think. And we just like every day sort of this nervous feeling as you'd look at this queue, going, "Oh my God, this is just disaster." And we ended up in a way, it was obviously great, but we had to shut off half the restaurant. And we kind of just made that decision. We said we can't get food out. So people were having this curious thing where they're waiting 2 hours, coming in and then seeing half the restaurant empty and getting a little bit annoyed. But we slowly recruited loads more people, trained people up, and so began the kind of the journey of Wahaca. And it was it was a really good experience. We went through all that, and what it taught us as a business is it's okay to make mistakes. I had a massive problem with that. Coming out of those of you who've done corporate finance, you basically know if you make a big kind of mistake on an Excel spreadsheet, you're kind of in the doghouse and probably going to lose your job. Certainly back then it was pretty tough. So I kind of came into restaurants thinking, okay, we're not going to make mistakes. We're going to be the best restaurant ever. And as you heard, pretty quickly, within about a minute, we made our first mistake. And every day in every restaurant, we now make mistakes. But it kind of taught me that we've got to think on our feet, we've got to be innovative, and we've always just got to keep challenging ourselves. How can we do things better? How can we keep on top of what the restaurant industry is doing, so that we're trying to be leaders the whole time? And I think the one thing that's different about Wahaca, which started back here, is that we want to change. Every restaurant, everything we do, we're always trying to be innovative, to change, to keep giving people reasons to come back and keep people talking about us. And for us, that's been a really sort of great part of our kind of of our own motivation. Really, it keeps Tommy and I really active, and it means that people who come to work for us, they know it's not going to be the same every day. We're always in the kitchen thinking about other things, looking at marketing opportunities, just coming up with crazy ideas. Like, we've got this Wahaca spoon, I'll talk about it later, where we did the spoon amnesty, and people, they bring back their spoons that they've stolen because 5,000 go missing every year. They'll get free tacos, and just fun stuff to make people kind of smile and come back. So one of the things about both Tommy and myself is we're both pretty restless people, and we're not very good at standing still and doing the same thing. And we've always got kind of a lot of crazy ideas in the restaurant space about want to do this, want to do that. And our investors are always going, "Guys, calm down, chill out. You've got a lot of other stuff to do with Wahaca. Let's just keep going." But the one thing we did manage to persuade them to sort of accept us doing is to do more innovating in the Mexican space. We kind of try to say, well, look, let's just be the innovators in Mexican food. So we open a site in St. Paul's, and about 3 doors down, the landlord was going to put another burrito concept. And we basically said, well, look, if you're going to put one in there, why don't we come up with a concept, and we'll have a bit of fun with it. And we weren't setting that up to roll out. We were just setting it up as a sort of a fun project, something we'd learn from. And we really wanted to sort of look at technology and how technology in this space could work. So we developed the Burrito Mama app, which the concept's called Burrito Mama. And we developed this app which I think was sort of the first app really at the time. It was sort of 2 and a bit years ago, where on the way to Burrito Mama, you could go on your phone and just put in your order, medium chicken burrito with extra cheese, guacamole, and we'd have your credit card details stored, and it's fairly standard now. And you basically order, and you could say you're going to pick it up in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it would go straight into our kitchen system and be ready for you. And also when you came in, you could as we said, you could order with humans or you could order with a computer, and it was a lot quicker. And we kind of changed a little bit the whole way burritos are done, and rather than going down the line, we had a really fast line at the back, just churning through them. So this was a really exciting opportunity for us. I mean, it's one of those things which, as a business, to be honest, is probably a bit of a red herring. It's like, why are you bothering with that when you've got so many other things in Wahaca to get on top of and do? But for us, it is a part of the culture in the business to be doing new things, to be doing different things. It keeps people exhausted, but it also keeps people kind of having fun. So we actually ended up creating another concept as well, which is part of the learning process out of Burrito Mama. We said, well, look, there seems to be some interesting opportunities in the Mexican space. You've got Wahaca, and we were about 15 restaurants strong at the time. You've got a whole lot of people in the burrito space who are doing a great job. They're all kind of competing against each other. And then there doesn't seem to be anything in the middle, kind of similar to like a Nando style, but in the Mexican space, where it's really fast casual, where you can go in, you order at a counter, but you then sit down, and then it becomes like a normal restaurant, but you've already paid. So the moment you want to get up and leave, you can get up and leave, and doesn't have to have the, get the waiter and all that kind of experience. And also from a cost point of view, we wanted to say the average spend in Wahaca is about sort of 16, 17 pounds. And we wanted to get a sort of a concept that brought in about sort of 11 pounds and gave people something slightly different. So we were kind of thinking about this idea when we went on a road trip to Chicago and New York and Mexico City. And this is where the concept of DF Mexico came from. So it's basically bringing the same fresh thinking, innovation and food authority as Wahaca, but with a fresh twist. So we kind of said if Wahaca was the market, then DF Mexico is the city. So those of you who don't know what the hell DF is, it's Mexico City. To those who know and live in Mexico City, they call it Distrito Federal, although rather annoyingly, the Mexican government about 3 months ago decided that they were no longer going to call it Distrito Federal, they're calling it Mexico City. However, we quite like that story as well, that we're the only ones now who can call ourselves DF Mexico. But and to locals, they call it DF or DF. And so we kind of actually wanted to call ourselves just DF. But weirdly, there's an Italian wine company which has got a small little unit in Harrods, and they've got some rights to the UK DF sort of name, which is really annoying. So we couldn't actually get that. So we ended up calling ourselves DF Mexico. And it's basically shaped by traditional flavors and modern influences, but it's a place for real fast food inspired by both Mexico and sort of New York, Chicago. And we kind of thought in our minds, if a Mexican guy went to university in New York, met a kind of an American dude, they became best friends, went back to Mexico City to set up a diner, what would that look like? And our designers and everyone else looked rather confused as we gave them this story. But that was in our head, that was kind of how we were sort of coming up with this concept. It's a really fun place. We've got two units open at the moment. One in just off Brick Lane in the Truman Brewery, and one on Tottenham Court Road. And these are just kind of design images about it. And it's got sort of really fun agrifrescas, lime and cheer, hibiscus, horchata. You can go and help yourself top up as many times as you like. And the food is about this sort of, we got Mexican tortas, like a kind of burger, but with smashed avocado, pork per bill, or habanero mayo with chicken thighs, really nice fish, big tacos, make your own kind of tortilla boards, amazing soft serve ice cream, and great frozen margaritas. And it's proved to be really, really sort of popular. It's hitting the kind of the market that we want, which is that idea that you could be in the gym, you can be just meeting some friends for a quick sort of half an hour, 3/4 of an hour bite to eat, and we want you to feel really informal and come in and enjoy it. And we've again got this idea, I think we're the first restaurant like this to put in self-service kiosks as well. So really cool kind of iPad-esque self-service machines. So you go up and just order and pay, and you can order with a human, or if you want, it's quicker to do it this way. So it's been really well received, and it's something that we as a business are really excited about. And why it's become quite relevant for us is what we don't want to do with Wahaca is become, yes, we're a chain, we're a group, call it what you want, but we don't want to become a kind of mass market proposition which loses its soul and its identity. We've grown a lot slower than a lot of the other kind of big restaurant groups who have opened at the same time of us, your likes of kind of Bar and Bill's, Jamie's Italian, all great businesses, but they're now 50, 60 strong. And for us, we're saying, how can we keep our soul and our heart and what we really love doing in this space, and coming up with great sort of innovation on the menu and in the designs, how can we do that and grow like 15, 20 a year? We just didn't feel it was something we wanted to do. So instead we kind of said, well, let's grow Wahaca slowly. Let's grow 3 to 4 a year. Let's really concentrate on the design. Let's know every restaurant. Let's know all of our people, and let's keep doing interesting things in the space. And meanwhile, with DF, we feel that that's a bit more of a rollout model, something which is really great, fast Mexican food, but something that's more accessible for people. People get it much quicker. With Wahaca, you need to come 2 or 3 times before you really understand the menu and you like the idea of playing around with different things. And for us, that was very important. So that's really allowed us to do that and play in that space. With awards, I mean, Wahaca's always, to me, it's quite interesting. Again, it was one of those things where you suddenly realize with the power of kind of the internet that some people just really want to hate you, and it was like the most sort of annoying thing when we open and someone's, oh, Wahaca's terrible, and you kind of sit there going, well, how does that work? And then you suddenly realize that 85% of people absolutely love you. And on Twitter, I'm kind of somewhat addicted to just following what people are saying about Wahaca every day. And it's really inspiring how much of a great following of people we have. But it is a bit of a Marmite brand where seemingly 85% of people love it, and the rest kind of just don't have that affiliation with us, and they maybe want bigger portions. They don't like the idea of sharing and food coming at different times. But it's been generally really well received. We've also focused a lot on sustainability. I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but for us, we wanted to set up a sustainable business from the go. So we did this kind of strange things where, and we didn't really know, we were quite naive when it came to sustainability. We kind of said, oh, let's be all sustainable. We want to save the planet, but didn't quite understand what that meant and how one goes about doing it, but said, well, look, we'll give it our best and we'll see how it goes. So we kind of went into Covent Garden, which was an old nightclub called Bad Bob's, and it had sat for like 10 years just with horrible kind of alcohol and all sorts of whatever else goes on in nightclubs, just sort of dripping all over the floor. And we said to all the builders, right, okay, we want to reuse all of the dance floor, all of the floor around to rebuild all of the walls of the restaurant. We want to we brought in this whole mud wall, 5 tons of mud, to kind of try that as a way of balancing the temperature down in the basement. And we came up with this idea. I think we were the second restaurant in London to recycle all of our waste. So waiters who are used to just walking into a restaurant and just bunging stuff into a bin suddenly were faced with 7 different bins where they had to put plastics and dry food and wet food and glass, and they were all kind of like, why are we doing this? And it took a long time to kind of discipline it in, but it's something that we've stood by, and we've become more academic at it as we've grown and got bigger. And it's something that we're really proud of now. We've just last 2 weeks ago became the first carbon neutral restaurant business in the UK, and that's kind of almost kind of a seal of all of our efforts that we do. And when it comes to building restaurants, we now build the most sustainable restaurants in the UK. So we get this rating of SCAR Gold, which is the highest level of sustainable builds that you can get, and we get a third-party consultant to come in and monitor the entire building process so that we know at the end that we've delivered something. And every time we open, we again try and be innovative about what are we putting in. So we now use all of the extracts that we put in. We don't put water boilers in. All the heat that comes off the grills goes to heat the water that then goes into the loos. We also have extract systems which only really ramp up to full capacity when they measure a certain volume of smoke coming off the grills. So all these little things that we put in place when we're building our restaurants has been worthwhile, and we've now got a pretty kind of academic approach to sustainability. And for us, sustainability is about not leaving a negative footprint on the planet. There's lots of ethical debates around sourcing and things, and we do our best with things like higher welfare chicken, but the main thing for us is not leaving a negative footprint on the planet. So our fish is all the highest level of sustainability, and we won't use certain fish stocks like tuna, for example, which is going to endanger the planet. And again, that's something we've managed to keep hold of for the last 8 years. So we've won we're very proud in our first year. We got the Observer Food Monthly Awards for the best cheap place to eat in the UK, which is voted by the public, and we didn't actually even know kind of the award existed, and we suddenly got told, you've got to come to these awards, you've won it. And I don't know how many sort of people voted, but it was voted by all the Observer readers, which we're really proud of. And even now, every year we pretty much become a runner-up on that, even though normally it's a kind of a new concept that wins it. So we're really proud of what's happened there. Also with technology, we're kind of driving technology. I mentioned the the Burrito Mama app. We also, I think we were the first restaurant to really develop the idea of having an app that pays at the table. So the Wahaca app, if you download it, and again, there's lots of systems like this now, but two and a half years ago, you could, instead of getting the waiter over, you could just literally get the whole bill up, you could split it, you could question things and just pay straight away within 20 seconds and leave the restaurant. And we would know because on our waiter pads, it would come up saying table 4 would flash yellow, meaning they'd paid. And again, it was really exciting technology. It was a hassle to put in, but for us, it's like keep trying stuff, keep innovating and trying to do things differently. And likewise, we've opened a whole debate up on, we were the first restaurant to serve insects in the UK. So we put insects on our menu, basically to get a bit of a stir, to get the public talking, but to start a debate around where protein's going to come from in the next 10 to 15 years and what people are going to be eating. And we created these various dishes using grasshoppers, which actually was amazing. So many people enjoyed them and really loved eating them. And there's various companies now like Grub who we've worked with who kind of pack it up like crisps, all these different insects you can eat. And we're thinking of doing lots more work with them. So we're, again, excited about how we're kind of innovating on that. So the marketing the Mexican market, how do we go about that? How's it evolved over time? Well, I mentioned the chilies, and we've given away 10 million of these since day one. And our sort of ethos in our mind is always not to be too serious. We want to have fun, bring smiles to people's faces. And if we're going to give a serious message, how can we do it in a fun way? So Guerrilla chili campaign. So we go out, all of our restaurants once a year, beginning of May, go out and give away about 500-600 different potted plants of chilies to people and encourage them to to plant them in sort of unusual places around London, tweet them, take pictures of them. And again, it's a really fun campaign that we do. As I said, insects and the Wahaca spoon amnesty, which again, we've had for 3 years now. It's one of those ideas which we just had a bit of fun going, everyone's always stealing our spoons. I think somewhere about 7,000 to 8,000 of them go missing each year. And we kind of said, well, what can we do about this? So we had this sort of idea going, why don't we just do this spoon amnesty, say to everyone, bring back the spoons, all is forgiven, and we'll give you some free street food. And said to our PR company, what do you think about that? Is that a good idea? And they basically said, guys, that's really bad. No one's going to want to write about that. Just leave it. And so we sort of said, well, look, we're going to do it because it's a bit of fun and we'll see what happens. And I think we made it into every single national newspaper as a news item. It was like page 4 in the Times, and you kind of sit there going, what? How does that work? Without any PR, people just picked it up and loved the story. And now sort of on, I think about 4 times on Mock the Week, they've done a sketch on Wahaca spoons, and you're kind of sitting there watching it, and it's sort of slightly surreal, but it's one of those ideas that has just been really fun, and people are kind of taken to it, and it makes people smile. And that's something we're really proud of. We've also tried to drive the brand sort of reappraisal forward. So again, this is back to my kind of theatrical roots, but it's sort of the idea of bringing a restaurant brand to life, doing something that's different that other people wouldn't dare to do. And we're blessed with investors who are really behind this. They want us to build a long-term business, and they want us to be creative and basically have fun. And so we've come up with this, the Dare the Dead, and from day one, we always wanted to do and celebrate Dare the Dead. And those of you that don't know it, it's probably it's certainly the biggest festival in Mexico. Most of you have seen the new Bond film, I would have thought by now. The opening scene of that's around Dare the Dead. And for us, it's just got the most wonderful imagery. There's so much culture and kind of room to talk about loads of different things. So what we wanted to do was a huge festival in London for 4,500 people. Where we got the budget was crazy and we overspent massively, but it was about just having a day of really good fun with sort of amazing Mexican acts, amazing British acts, awesome art sort of celebrating. We've teamed up with the Saatchi Gallery on art, looking at exploring sort of life and death and what it means. We teamed up with English Pen doing really interesting talks around life and around Mexico. We got the Horrors, Crystal Fighters. We got Enrico Vera, who's the 15th best chef in the world, to come over from Mexico City from his restaurant Pujol and cook with Tommy. And we just had loads of fun. And we've actually got a little video, video clip I'm just going to show you of it, just so that you get a bit of a feel for what it was about.
My name's Thomasina Myers, and I'm here at Wahaca's Day of the Dead Festival 2015. This year we wanted to do a huge celebration, really a collaboration between Britain and Mexico. All the best art, culture, food and music. It's really exciting.
London is a very cosmopolitan city. It's a city that embraces ethnical cuisines, and we're always happy to be here and cook Mexican food.
At Wahaca, we've always loved Day of the Dead. It's a celebration of life and death.
Celebrating the lives of those we've lost.
Live the life you love.
Just live now, live today, that's it.
Rip, brave and misbehave.
Live the day like it's your last one on earth.
Although it's called the Day of the Dead, it's about being alive and being happy.
So that just gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the kind of fun stuff we do, and it's also, if nothing else, it's a really good thing for all of our teams. They kind of, we've got sort of about 1,200 people working for us now, and they all kind of worked incredibly hard. I mean, cooking food for one day for 5,000 people is a really difficult job, and I think our kind of one of our kitchens was working, I think, for like 72 hours non-stop with about 15 people, and just tons and tons of food. But it just bonded everyone together. It made, hopefully, and I think it's true of working at Wahaca, just something different, something you wouldn't normally get to experience within this sector. And the other thing that we do as well is we try and work with other brands and businesses that we really like and sort of feel we can help develop. So whether it's sort of new Dawson ginger beer that we've got on Guerrilla, or working with Riverford Organic to actually teach them about huitlacoche, which is a Mexican delicacy where it's a corn fungus that grows on corn, so when corn effectively goes moldy. And it's something that the rest of the world just throws away that corn because they think they can't use it. In Mexico, they scrape off the fungus and they make it into huitlacoche, and we have it every year on our winter menu. Huitlacoche quesadillas, and it's one of our most popular dishes, and we actually teamed up with Riverford Organic and taught them how to go about effectively making huitlacoche, and it was a really exciting project that we do, and we continue working with them, and likewise in sort of we try and part of the idea about not growing too quickly is when we do open, we can get to understand a community a little bit. And sometimes people don't like we are a group, we are a chain, but we believe we do it with a bit of integrity and a heart. So we're opening in Brixton, for example. We really spent a lot of time understanding the Brixton community, employed people from Brixton, opened up the restaurant to lots of community spaces, worked with local suppliers like Brixton Brewery to create our own beer, which gets delivered every day into us by the guys there. And for us, again, just having that kind of local touch and that kind of that feeling and that heart is something that's really important. So that's pretty much it. I think just people often kind of say to me, so what are some tips around kind of getting into this sort of entrepreneurial, set up your own business environment? And 3 ones that I kind of sometimes give are, I think, don't just break the rules for the sake of them, but if your heart's telling you to do something, even if other people aren't, breaking the rules is fun, and it is something that's really exciting. And when we first got the concept of Wahaca together, cooking in Tommy's kitchen, and we kind of said, well, how got all these amazing different dishes, and we don't want to take anything off the menu, so how can we do it so people actually get to try lots of different things? And so this concept of creating little plates, and obviously you had tapas, but traditionally it was, your starter, your main course, and your pudding. That was kind of how restaurants were working sort of 8-9 years ago. And we said, well, why can't we do something where people can just try lots of different things, like you are on a street, street stand, street stalls. So we came up with this idea of people ordering 2 to 3 different plates. So kind of, 2 people could have 6 different experiences of this Mexican street food. And that's something that our investors kind of say, oh, I'm not sure people are really going to like that. And other people saying people like their kind of, especially in London, they want their standard kind of like, main course experience. They don't want to share like that. And now, obviously, I think pretty much, 1 in 2 restaurants in London that opens does little street food plates, order 2 to 3, comes out as and when ready. And that for us was something that we're really proud to kind of have I think, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure we started that kind of idea about exploring food in that way. And we still continue to look at different ways to develop that. And likewise with that whole sustainability piece on the kind of the bins, it was a big effort to tell waiters, look, this is possible. We can create a 0 landfill business. This is something that's really, really possible. And again, 9 years on, we've managed to prove that you can do it. And we're now looking at the whole carbon neutral element of our business, as I said earlier. I think listening is really, really important. It's amazing how many people I meet in the restaurant space and lots of other businesses, and they come and ask you sort of, what do you think about this business idea, or what do you think about this concept? And I've always got an opinion on it. I'll give people little ideas, but it's amazing how many people have already just come into that conversation. This is what I'm doing, and yes, I'll listen to you, but I'm not really going to take that on board. And for me, I just listen to people the whole time. Customers, whatever they're saying on Twitter, it annoys the hell out of everyone that works for us, but I'm always getting someone's opinion, even if I don't really believe it. I want to open a discussion internally about it. This is what people are saying. What do we think about that? How do we learn from that? And to me, it's been a really, really important lesson. And when people just are sort of arrogant because of their business model and don't listen, to me, I'm just always so surprised about it. And I think people should listen as much as possible, and even if it's a hassle, just bear in mind what people are saying, and then you can kind of discount it by talking to other people. So yeah, that's a really important message, I think, for people to kind of take away with them. And the final one is, I've completely forgotten what the final one is, so I'm not going to give it to you at the moment, but I'll think about it later. So that's just in a nutshell, kind of where we came from, why we set up Wahaca, where we're trying to take the business. We're not trying to create this massive kind of global kind of chain, but we do want to kind of create effectively a sort of a chain that's got an independent feel. And for us, that's something that's really important. Has anyone got any questions or anything? Yeah. Shall I just pick questions, or do you guys?
Well, thanks for coming today. I absolutely like the idea of combining theater with dining. I'm just curious, how did you get the idea? Like, you said you were very into restaurant, you spent all that money.
Of Wahaca or the original? Of Wahaca.
How did you come up with this very interesting idea? And this actually brings us to a bigger question now. Do you have any suggestions on how entrepreneurs should look at and screen out ideas, especially when they have a lot of ideas?
Yeah. So the whole kind of concept came from Mexican food, obviously, and seeing that there just wasn't anyone doing good Mexican food in the UK, and also good Mexican food where, there were some great little Mexican restaurants in London doing amazing Mexican food. But for us, it was like we knew we wanted to create something with a bit of growth and a bit of scale, and those still exist and are great businesses. And Mexicans and people that really know Mexico love going to them. But we felt some of those weren't necessarily going to appeal to all of the UK market. So we kind of in our mind had this thing of Brit-Mex. So the idea that you're using British ingredients, and we kind of said, if I was a Mexican living in London, how would I go about cooking? And what ingredients will I use that would be locally around, and I could source locally, vegetables and cheeses and all those kind of things. So for us, it was sort of that was the incentive. And then, as I said, the whole plates idea basically came from just saying we want people to try more than just one dish. We want people to experience all these different things, to have a real kind of adventure when they come in here, a sort of a foodie adventure. And so we kind of set about trying to work out how to go about achieving that. And the hard bit about that it is a bugbear for some people, is the idea of why can't you just bring all the plates out at once? Why does one take 5 minutes and one take 10 minutes? But if you don't do that, tacos go cold in about literally about 2 minutes. And we want people just to kind of get food and then get some more food and not really know, have I got anything else coming, what's coming, and just have a bit of a kind of an organized chaos kind of experience. So that's kind of roughly, and hopefully so everything else I've said about why and how we set it up. In terms of how an entrepreneur goes about kind of filtering out all the different businesses and stuff, I don't know. It's your gut, I guess. I mean, I was a guy came to see me 4 years ago with a concept called Patty and Bun. I don't know if you guys know that as a big, amazing burger joint in London. And he had so much enthusiasm and just like, I've got this, I'm going to do this amazing burger place. It's going to be fantastic. And I just kind of looked at him and said, Joe, there are so many burger concepts out there. What are you talking about? It's not going to work. I'd give up if I were you. Anyway, went on to create Patty and Bun, and it's been a huge success. The best burger in London, and So who the hell knows? It's just one of those things where your heart's got to lead you on something, and as I said, I think just by listening to people, so rather than just, if I get something in where someone wants an investment or something like that, I'll talk to all my friends. I'll kind of go, here's an idea. What do you think about this? How would you use it? What would you do? And I think just, going to people who are experienced in that industry and asking them what they think, and just getting, I just spend a lot of time asking questions of people. And to me, that's kind of the best way of doing as a limited amount of research as you want. But I think also the bit with Wahaca, which I didn't say, we never wrote a business model. We had no kind of strategy really. We had no kind of, this is what it's going to look like and this is going to be bottom line, predominantly because we all know business plans basically never go according to a business plan. It's a little, and that's one of the things I learned from Stelios. We never wrote business plans really. We kind of came up with concepts, and then it's just like, right, what's the broad element of this going to be? Let's get it open and let's just play around. And we've changed loads about Wahaca over the years. By not being too structured about it, just going, actually, we can change things. Why can't we just try this, try that, and do different things? And I think, with businesses, it's very rare when you get an original business which 2 years later is doing exactly the same thing. And I think you've got to, be able to kind of to twist and dive a little bit in the way you approach it. Am I choosing? Do you want to go? So I'll come over here.
Thank you for that. Quick question about your plans for the future, and also interested you touched a little bit on that, the challenges that you've encountered with the ingredients. I mean, I don't know what challenges you've seen here finding tomatillo verde and all those kind of ingredients that are basically, at least for Mexicans just living in London, impossible to find. Yeah. So if you could tell me where you're finding that would be helpful. And I mean, I purchased your salsas, which I think are amazing, and I don't know how you get to sell those to Brits, because they're spicy even for me. Yeah. So where do you get your inspiration? How do you determine, well, this is actually something that UK people would like, and plans going forward? I don't know of any frozen food.
Okay. So first one, ingredients. Yeah, I mean, ingredients is really difficult, and I was amazed when there's a kind of a great institution called Cafe Pacifico, which is a sort of been around for 25 years, really great Mexican restaurant, and someone told me that, like, even I think 20 years ago they could only do guacamole for about a quarter of the year, because they couldn't get hold of avocados. And so for us, we tell at least, we could get avocados, we could get, a whole range of different chilies, and things coming over from Spain. And wonderful, we actually teamed up with the South Devon Chili Company when we first opened. And it was, really great partnership that we had with them in getting their chilies. And now actually we still work with them. When you come to Wahaca and have a coffee, we give you some chili chocolate, which is we get made through those guys. But again, we grew kind of too much that they couldn't keep on kind of providing us with chilies and hot sauces, which was annoying. There are people who, I think it's the Mex Grocer in Victoria, I think you can get some product from. But it is really hard, and obviously chili and spice shops, there's quite a few of those around. But we have to kind of work with our suppliers and get them to kind of have agreements in Mexico and bring stuff over. But our ethos is wherever possible, we try not to import stuff. So we try to work, as I said, not using, Oaxacan cheese is absolutely amazing. And we didn't put that on for a long time. And then Gringa Dairy, this lady down in Brixton started making the equivalent of Oaxacan cheese, which is this beautiful, really stringy cheese, which is amazing in quesadillas. And we've done quite a few specials. Unfortunately, it's really expensive because she's very small and does it, so we put it on as specials. But things like that, where we use different types of cheese to try and match the flavors that we got. So it's not easy. And also corn tortillas, we work with the Cool Chili Company, who are fantastic. But I think we all acknowledge that the corn tortillas you get here are just not a sort of match on what you get when you go to Mexico. And it's the first thing when we arrive. We take about 30 of our guys over every year on a little kind of trip to Mexico to explore and find out stuff. And it is straight to a little taqueria and tuck into these amazing tortillas. And we've explored that a lot. And is there ways that we can get a machine, run it, and do it? But we're just not confident that that we can kind of create the same kind of product, the fresh product that you get over there. So that's that. In terms of what was your other question? Going forward, in terms of sort of what we want to do and achieve, I think it is. We think we can get to. Well, we probably want to get to 30, 40 Oaxacas across the country, and then think about, we've been approached to go to America, which seems a bit weird, but there's, in America, where obviously loads of Mexican food, but I don't think anyone's quite doing the kind of the design. Design isn't treated in the same way. We spend a lot of effort in the design of our restaurants and try and make them individual and really kind of creative spaces. And in America, it doesn't quite work that way, and that whole street food kind of idea and little plates and stuff, in the style we do it, doesn't really exist over there. So I don't think we're going to do that for a while, but that's an opportunity that we might have. But the main thing is we want to, actually with DF Mexico being there, we want to try and push the food a little bit more in Oaxaca and be more creative, be a little bit more bold with what we're doing, flavor-wise and stuff. And in terms of heat factor, I mean, that's always been a bit of a problem for us because, it's because we are appealing to quite a few people. I think we feed like 65, 70,000 people a week now in the UK. There are loads of people that love heat. There's loads of people that don't like heat. And at the beginning, we put our salsas on every table. We didn't put too much heat in the food. And then I think, I can't remember who it was, a critic for the Times kind of said, some of the food's really bland. And it's kind of, well, we've got all these salsas there for you to spice it up if that's what you want. But we're trying to find ways where we can get to a nice balance where you can still add really hot sauce if you want and fire it up, but also it's got enough flavor in it, but not hot enough that you're going to put off loads of people. Because some people, as you say, find our chicken tinga tacos, which are a little bit of heat in it, just mind-blowingly hot, and other people don't find it remotely hot. So that's been a big challenge for us, and it's something which we're just constantly looking at ways to say, right, well, let's have a third of things which have loads of heat flavor, and other ones where you can add things. I hate this. Yeah.
Well, I'm interested how you raised finance for the startup for the first restaurant. Am I right to assume that you did a equity-based crowdfunding campaign as well?
No, we were incredibly lucky, to be honest. It was basically the guys I used to work with who set up Nando's. They just effectively agreed to fund it without a business plan or anything. They kind of knew me, they knew kind of my work ethos and what I was like, and they basically just said, we'll kind of fund it. So we did that, and then we borrowed we actually had 3 different rounds of we agreed 3 different rounds of funding according to certain success rates, and then we got this site in Covent Garden, which was sort of twice as big as we were expecting it to be, and basically blew all 3. Basically, just took a massive punt. Said, "Look, I'm really sorry. Can I take all 3 lots of this funding and put it into the first restaurant, which I think cost us like 1.2 million pounds or something to set up." And luckily it worked, and that restaurant went on to fund the next one. And then we've done a couple of other small rounds off the back of it with the same investors who have been very kind of generous, and just they're in it for the long term. They understand our vision, and they're just very, very supportive. So I always feel rather guilty when people come and talk to me about advice, because I never had to really go through the pain of meeting 1,000 people and persuading people, and and I'm sure I would have had to do a business model had I done that, but I didn't have to, and so it was pretty lucky. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming today to share your valuable experience with us. I just wanted to ask, if you were to do this again, the whole setup at Wahaca, would there be anything fundamentally different that you do?
Yeah, I've thought about that quite often, and I think probably not. And I think all the mistakes we made and all the problems we had just sort of made us as a team and as a creative kind of group what we are. And it yes, there was loads of pain, and it was really difficult. But would I come in with a whole experienced team who knew exactly what they were doing? No, because I think that vibrancy, that energy that we brought in from the beginning, the youth and the feeling of energy that I think you still get when you walk into Wahaca, all came from just a bunch of young guys who didn't really know what we were doing, having fun and experimenting with our kind of vague idea and our vague kind of mission of just hopefully doing great Mexican food. And actually, when we set up DF Mexico, I think we in a way we kind of made a mistake, and I kind of said, right, I'm going to get someone who sort of knows all about finance and running a sort of a business to come in, and we're going to get we're going to completely kind of start again and structure it and have a P&L and a budget and all this kind of stuff. And for the first 6 months, it really killed it. It was just like people were like not creatively thinking about it, and it sort of led me to now kind of I'm really excited about it and getting involved in the business and having to kind of forget the whole Wahaca structure that we've had to build to kind of enable us to grow and to make sure standards are there, and actually just start thinking about, you know what, let's just spend a bit of money here. Let's not think too much about, with our teams, let's not have a budget for entertainment. Let's just go out, and if we want to have a beer, let's have a beer. If we want to go to Mexico, let's go to Mexico. It's just, and it's just, it's that kind of almost not knowing what you don't know is really, really important and valid when you're in that startup phase, particularly I think in this sector where you're competing with so many people. There's so much noise that you just need to be on your feet, constantly thinking what can we do that's going to impress people, and listening to our customers and going, what are they saying? Right, let's change that now, rather than having to have a kind of a big experience structure in where people come from a much more kind of rigid background.